what was the impetus to release that song as your first single, an 8-minute song in 1975?
What a story. What a great question. That's the ultimate question that has ever been posed in the history of language. But I know I always speak in superlatives because it's my life.
Rock, metal, prog, and everything in between. Welcome to this episode of Talkin' Rock with Meltdown. Don't forget to follow the audio-only Talkin' Rock podcast on all podcast platforms. And now, it's time for today's conversation. Here's Meltdown.
Meltdown with your meltdown daddy, Uncle Ted. Do you know how much I love you?
Man, I can't even imagine. I was thinking about this earlier. I think the first time I met you was in the old building back in like the mid-90s. You came in with Arthur and stuff, and we hung out. And
why not? Why not? If you're in rock and roll radio, you're part of the Nugent family. So I hope you feel that blistering spirit that I exude.
It's hard not to. So, hey, man, the Vault is out. So tell me about this thing.
Where do I begin? My God, have you witnessed my vapor trail lately? December 13th, 1948. I think Bo Diddley was already impacting my mother's belly at Henry Ford Hospital in Detroit late that evening. No, you know, what a whirlwind. I've always expressed, and you and I've talked often enough that you know the vapor trail that I create and that I wallow in. I am so focused. I just played a bunch of licks here this morning. I did my, what is my show called? Real America's Voice, Spirit Campfire. I just did this thing this morning. I was playing a bunch of guitar licks. I don't know. Isn't there a setting on here? My point is that the music owns my soul. It has always owned my soul. So from the very beginning, I'm focused on what are my hands going to do today? What James Brown influence, what train wreck, what short skirt influence is going to motivate my hands to play a rhythm and blues masterpiece today? And that's always been the motivation. So I don't dwell on the past. I mean, the past, it accumulates and it creates my new musical statement or my new American dream statement. But as Jason Hartless started swan diving into the boxes and the vats and my barn in Michigan, he goes, "Where's this tape from? Is this the original rehearsal for the Amboy Dukes Tooth, Fang, and Claw?" I go, "My God, it is." So I was drawn back to the impetus that starts all of our musical cravings. And when Jason started unloading some of these crates and boxes and vats of historical recordings and jam sessions and cassettes and reel-to-reels, and I think there were some 8-tracks in there. There might have even been some hieroglyphics on a cave wall. I'm the only guitar player that actually wrote lyrics in hieroglyphics on a cave wall. Hence the loincloth. Anyhow, are you having fun with this like I am? So my point is that Jason started digging into this, and he was just pulling out the tapes and the photos and the boxes, going back to pre-Amboy Dukes. I stopped what I was doing, which is not easy to get me to do because I'm always doing stuff. My life is a whirlwind of adventure and joy, and I literally stopped what I was doing in the swamps of Jackson, Michigan. And he was pulling out these recordings, and I'm going, "Oh yeah, I remember that. That was the night I played with Steve Booker and John, and the first Stranglehold that came out. That was in October of 1968. The first Stranglehold, and I go, my God, John Sauter came in with that open string bass, and I got it on a cassette, a little SS Kresge cassette player. It's hysterical. So how do you not become fascinated by the first attempt at making the wheel? It wasn't quite round enough, but boy, it was exciting and adventurous. And when Jason started pulling out all these tapes and cassettes and 8-tracks and reel-to-reels, I go, my God, no wonder I'm having so much fun, because it's an accumulation of musical adventure and experimentation and fascinating musical geniuses at my side. And he said, "You know, I can I can probably do something with this. And I go, well, like what? So we created the Nuge Vault, or Jason created the Nuge Vault, because he's a technician. I'm not much of a technician unless it has to do with crowbars or sharp sticks, or a ballistic coefficient. So I let Jason Hartless run wild with it because he is a techno guy, um, and it's just been a source of immeasurable highs, hearing back how good those early Amboy Dukes jam sessions were, and the early Ted Nugent band, and the very first damn Yankees um, creative jam party, and how you fell in love with this animal soundtrack of rhythm and blues, accelerated rock and roll, spirit, outrage, defiance, sincerity, uh, ridiculous. It covers all the human capabilities. All of our favorite music touches every possibility of the human experience. And being clean and sober all my life, I was really able to touch the inner mechanisms of what these amazing virtuosos that I've been so honored and privileged and blessed to have at my side. And so, even as dumb teenagers, I think there's some pre-teenage stuff out there.
Mm.
Um, we were already so inspired by Bo Diddley and Chuck Berry and Little Richard and Jerry Lee Lewis and Howlin' Wolf and Muddy Waters, and eventually the Stones and the Beatles, and eventually everybody, that it's been just an outrageous, fun, fascinating dig into the archives of what is Ted Nugent, Amboy Dukes, damn Yankees music. And when Jason said we can do something with this, I went, well, tell me what that is and how we can do it and how I can help. But the Nuge Vault, the people that have already subscribed to it, I mean, I'm getting emotional, gushing. Real music lovers, which is what your career is. Real music lovers know that sounds and songs and lyrics and musicianship, it represents a deep inner spirit of the human attitude, pleasure seeking, adventure, emotion,
Mm.
from the best of the good to the worst of the ugly. And boy, have I covered those paces efficiently. And Jason Hartless has mined like digging into a mine of jewels and precious metals. Boy, what an applicable statement that is. Thanks to Jason Hartless, because I would not have the patience. But as I review the stuff that Jason has dug out for the Nuge Vault, I get a little teary eyed once in a while because I'm a touchy guy. And again, that clean and sober thing, I can remember that bass player. I can remember Steve Booker at the jam session after an Amboy Dukes gig at the Grandy in 67, that the Stranglehold lick first erupted from. And somehow we found those early exploratory rehearsals and recordings and jam sessions. And wow, if I wasn't me, I would fall in love with me. I mean, because it was so pure,
Mhm.
so raw, so primal, like the first time I'm sure Chuck Berry and his band unleashed those Johnny B. Good lyrics, and I'm talking guitar lyrics, not even word lyrics, but musical. Yeah, Meltdown. What a riot I am.
Well, that's for sure. And there's a lot to unpack right there. I didn't realize that Stranglehold had kind of got its seeds 7 or 8 years earlier. But what was the impetus to release that song as your first single, an 8-minute song in 1975?
Oh, what a story. What a great question. That's the ultimate question that has ever been posed in the history of language. But I know I always speak in superlatives because it's my life. But I swear to God, I don't know if you've heard this story. This is why my middle finger is so delicious.
Okay.
When I decided not to use the name Amboy Dukes, which again I revere, I cherish all those musicians. What a gift. Dave Palmer and Gregor Raymond, Steve Farmer and John Drake and Andy Solomon and Rick Lowe. What a gift for a musical lover to end up in the realm of those musical forces. You know, it's not me. It's the accumulation of musicality and spirit of sound adventure. Boy, this is rather profound. I think we need to make some banners out of some of these phrases. Am I right?
You better put this in the vault, right?
This got what it's going to go in the vault. You're going to be part of my vault.
Uh,
So when I started playing guitar in Detroit with Joe Podorczyk at the Capitol School of Music on Grand River, all I wanted to learn was honky tonk and boogie woogie. By the way, I think there's a setting here. How can I get recording? How can I thought there was a setting because sometimes you can't play
what do you want to do?
guitar
Play your guitar?
auto settings. What is audio? I don't know how to do this. I'll break something. I'm I'm already losing you. But anyhow, um, honky tonk, boogie woogie, original blues and R&B and gospel guitar maneuvers. That's all there was in 1955 when I started taking guitar lessons on Grand River. But there's a primality, a primal scream, a soundtrack to the human spirit, and it came from blacks who knew that they were the victims of the scourge, the sin, the curse of slavery. That's where all that soul music came from, because they knew instinctively that they could break away from this human atrocity called slavery. And that's when Chuck Berry and Bo Diddley and certainly Howlin' Wolf and Muddy Waters and Mose Allison, but ultimately Little Richard, Little Richard nailed it. And all these guys that was playing this upbeat, outrageous, middle finger defiant music was so electric, thanks to Les Paul's invention. I think maybe Leo Fender might have done it before Les Paul, but the electrification of the guitar that has an expansive tonality, thanks to Joe Podorczyk at Capitol School of Music on Grand River, who taught me those fundamental honky tonk and boogie woogie licks. And there was no real, there was the Ventures and Dick Dale and the Deltones, and there was doo-wop bands where the guitar wasn't prominent, but all of a sudden in Detroit, the guitar became prominent. And as I pursued the spirit of that music, I stumbled. I mean, Donnie Henderson of the Gang, that was the name of the band with the first my band, the Lourdes. I keep in touch with Donnie Henderson. He was the guitar player, and he was able to play Chuck Berry and Bo Diddley stuff way better than I did. I stumbled because I was addicted to the Rouge River with my bow and arrow. So maybe I didn't put as much time in as the rest of the guys.
Yeah.
I split my time between the 6-string and the 1-string. But I developed my own style that kind of bastardized the perfect rendition of a Chuck Berry or a Bo Diddley lick. I kind of stumbled and turned it into a different groove because I couldn't play it exactly like those guys did. So I developed my own identity and style and signature style of playing, especially with a Gibson Birdland that wants to feed back and take your face off because it howls from feedback at such a low level. The point being is that my whole musical dream has been at such hyper speed and surrounded by these monsters of musicality. Steve Booker, make sure you know the name Steve Booker, Detroit. I can't think. He has a funny name, like a guru name. Anyhow, John Souter on bass and me on the Gibson Birdland through a Fender Twin, and Steve Booker on drums at a church right after I got off stage at the Grande Ballroom in late '67, maybe winter into '68. And I just started that Stranglehold lick. I'd never played it before. It was an extension of what the Ventures did, but because I wasn't a real good guitar player, not a virtuoso, I relied on rhythm and the percussiveness of my right hand against the strings to get the checka. And that's where the Stranglehold lick came. And I had a cassette of it, and that was '67 or early '68 that lick happened. As all my licks come from jam sessions. I've never sat down with a pencil and paper and go, geez, what should I write about? Geez, what key should I play? And I just pick up the guitar and just unleash fury, which is so beautiful. If I wasn't me, I'd go see me play every night. I would buy all my records if I wasn't me. because I love that primal scream of my style of music, which is your favorite music, whether it's the Stones or the Beatles or the Who or Grand Funk Railroad or any of your favorite songs. Um, and so I was possessed by the spirit of musical adventure. So when Jason Hartless started finding these tapes and told me there was a technical way to convey them to the maniac hardcore music lovers, a la the Nuge Vault, I got really excited, which I'm very easily stimulated. Um, it's like my foreskin has been pulled way back and the rim is always exposed. Are you still with me?
Well, a little bit. Hey, well,
Well,
wait.
you need to.
Hold on. You released an 8-minute song in 1975. I
I
mean,
know it, but that's the beauty. Here's the story.
okay.
So when we're doing Stranglehold at rehearsal with Rob Grange on bass guitar and Derek St. Holmes on rhythm guitar and vocals, just again monster musicians, and Brian Staffeld, who was Derek's drummer at the time before I got Cliff Davies from the band If. I can't. Meltdown, can you believe I remember all these details? Are these awesome details? This is awesome.
50 years ago, right?
Yeah. Summertime 1973-ish, where I'd had a lot of changes in personnel in the Amboy Dukes because I really wanted it to be soulful, and I had the greatest, most soulful musicians in the world. So inspiring. But I decided to just call it Ted Nugent instead of the Ted Nugent and the Amboy Dukes anymore against the Diversified Management Booking Agency. I said, I have a vision for exactly what I want to hear musically. And Rob on bass guitar and Cliff Davies on drums and Derek St. Holmes on vocals. What a gifted monster he is, another Detroit movement. And we jammed on the Stranglehold lick, and I'll never forget we had an intervention. I know you love me, Meltdown, but you're going to love me even more. You're going to want to reach out and just smooch me on the lips. Because when we went in to meet with Tom Werman, my producer,
Yeah.
Tony Reality, co-producer, engineer, they were all deep into the raw primal grunt and grind of my songs that I was writing on the first Ted Nugent album, recorded in '74. But they called it an intervention. I didn't know it was an intervention, but I really enjoy interventions because I like to destroy them. And they all had a big meeting with all the Epic personnel, the president, the vice president, the marketing, and all the people, the distributors. I mean, this big room full of people to thank me and congratulate me on my first solo record on Epic Records. And then I could tell there was a discomfort in the room. And I think it was Tom Werman. They go, but this song Stranglehold, Ted, there's no chorus. It's kind of just a jam session, and the entire team, the record company, the distributors, the band, the crew, everybody, they said that there's not a place on the record for it. Now you know me, Meltdown. You know what my response. I was a gentleman. I had this shit-eating grin that I've perfected. I can't help it.
Right.
It's so organic. You should see what my balls are doing right now. Or maybe you shouldn't.
No.
So they said there's no chorus and it's just a jam session, and it kind of extended jams aren't marketable or something. I go, gentlemen, my friends, my team, I love you. But have you not seen the last 800 concerts we've done where we played this thing called Stranglehold, and how music lovers go berserk because of the groove and the spirit and the pulse of this piece of music? With all due respect, and I love you people, let's go to the studio and I say the first song we record is Stranglehold. And they knew who they were dealing with, because I'm basically shall I say, a ramrod of musical demands. Well, what Rob did on the bass, what Cliff did on the drums, what Derek did on that vocal, and where my guitar soared to heights based on those inspiring bandmates, I give you Stranglehold. And then all of a sudden, the rest of the team went, oh yeah. Oh, yeah. I get it. It's a great story. You're going to love the story as a music guy. So we get done. I did the guide track with a Gibson Birdland and two Fender Twins through two dual Showman bottoms with Electro Voice SRO 15s in them. And it has a tender. Again, I wish I knew how to push this button because my Birdlands, they just have a life of their own. They just start making noises.
Mm.
Anybody else in the world can control a Birdland's feedback in front of the amps except me. I'm the only guy. And so I did a guide guitar solo track with Cliff and Rob, and it was the first time I ever played those licks because that's how I am. I'm spontaneous. I become out of body when I play. I just got done with my Real America Voice Spirit Campfire here a minute ago, and I played my guitar. Again, I wish I knew how to get the settings because is this a Zoom call? Whatever this is,
Yeah.
it doesn't know how to translate the power of my guitar. I played that down. First time I'd ever done that. That motherfucker would feedback, and it was man, just grinding me. All within miles of the studio, animals began breeding out of control, and the Goosebumps had goosebumps. But we captured the first take of that guitar etude is what you hear today because Rob and Cliff's grind and groove and Motown quality soulfulness so inspired the voicings of that Birdland and the pickup positions from the treble pickup to the back pickup to even pickups to tone and volume adjustments. You can tell there's a lot of subtle nuanced tonality throughout that solo from blaring to not so blaring.
Mm-hmm.
And when I came in, I'll never forget because Tom Werman went, "That was awesome. I've never heard you play it. Have you been working on that solo? That was stunning." And I go, "Wasn't it? It certainly was. I'm stunned here talking to you." And he said, "With just you're gonna, and I know you love me, but you're gonna want to kiss me from the waist down next time I see you." So Tom said that was some brilliant. He said, "I've never heard that solo." And I go, "Neither have I." He said, and I love Tom Werman. I just talked to him recently. He just turned 80 something.
Yeah.
He said, "Boy, a couple edits. I'm going to make that." I said, whoa, hang on. I may have even exposed my 357 Smith & Wesson at the time. I go, "You touch that solo, I'll kneecap your ass." I said, "It's the holes. It's the breathing. It's what I don't play that is as important as what I did play." And he kind of smirked, which after working with me a while, you'll rely on smirks quite often. He, like right now you're smirking. He smirked and he went, okay. So it went from being a discarded composition to being the opening track on my first solo album. And to this day, I just heard from a Navy SEAL today, Meltdown, but that when they train and they get to the point where they almost die in their training, staying underwater beyond lung capacity, he said they play Stranglehold. And it look at the communications I've received, what that song means to people, especially in challenging moments. Wow, I'm a dangerous man even when I'm sleepy, but I'm so inspired by those kinds of testimonies and love for that song and the spirit, the defiance of that song. "Here I come again now, baby, like a dog in heat." That was a statement to the industry that said, "Well, the industry, the marketplace doesn't call for a lot extended guitar solos and cat scratch whatnot. Doesn't sound like a hit record to me." So my lyrics to Stranglehold were a huge flame-throwing middle finger to the industry that every record company had turned me down because they didn't get it. Meanwhile, I'm on the road without any hit records, selling out maybe only 3,000 or 4,000 seat soldiers and sailors places and bowling alleys or whatever, or skating rinks. But the reaction of the audiences was why Tom Werman signed me to Epic Records. And it was because of the defiant stand up for what you believe in spirit of the song Stranglehold that Derek St. Holmes delivered miraculously, Rob and Cliff, the groove, the guitar solo was so spirited and inspired by my bandmates, and the statement of defying an industry that didn't think this music that the people loved was pertinent anymore because the industry was disconnected from the people who love music, and I wasn't. I was one of them. What a statement I just gave you. Is that not why we love rock and roll?
Yeah. Yeah. I love the part about where it was the notes you didn't play because I think sometimes guitar players kind of get lost in their own media hype.
There's a lot of noodling going on out there, and I love noodling. I mean, Eddie and Steve Vai and Joe Satriani and me and a lot of guys. They're masters of fretboard gymnastics, which have a place in a crescendo movement. And there was some of that on Stranglehold, and there's certainly unlimited examples of that throughout my musical career. But like Journey to the Center of Mind, hey, ba-da-da. Come on, I don't have to play 50 notes. Those 4 notes are perfect.
Yeah.
And the Stranglehold guitar solo was inspired by Cliff and Rob. Cliff and Rob so laid down such a Motown Funk Brother supreme quality grind that it makes me play that way. I'm not inspired. Well, all right. I was going to say, I'm not inspired by this or that. I'm inspired by everything, which is why there's so many holes in a lot of my guitar soloing. I take breaths. Maybe it's Freddie King or Albert King. Maybe it's B.B. King. Maybe it's even Clapton at times. Or maybe it's Dwayne Eddy. No, I take that word maybe out of all those statements just now. It's all of those guys. It's as much Junior Walker on the saxophone, or Yusef Lateef on the keyboard, or Jimmy Smith, where there's holes in lyricism, and thank God, Derek, Rob, Cliff, Tom Werman, Tony Reale, and Lou Futterman, they got it immediately. When I came in out of the studio with Rob and Cliff, where we laid down Stranglehold, and that was the take one. That was supposed to be a rhythm guitar track guiding the dynamics where it crescendoed and settled back down.
Mm-hmm.
I had never played those licks before. And when I knew that I was onto something, because I'm so in love with the music, I'm so in love with what Rob and Cliff and Derek provided, and that Tom and Lou and Tony so supported my musical dreams, that cocktail of love of music, especially when it's love of my music, is and I'm, as a music guy, you know what I'm saying. The inspiration is incalculable. It has a life of its own. Figuratively speaking, when I play my music, my feet don't touch the ground. I'm an old man, but I played some stuff this morning on my Real America Voice Spirit Campfire podcast. It's so emotional. It's so inspiring. It's so out of body, and that Stranglehold guitar solo and the performance of Cliff, Rob, and Derek exemplify our love of music, because it had a life of its own, whether it's a Zeppelin song or a Beatles or a Stones or a Grand Funk or I don't care who it is. There's a moment of out of body inspiration that touches all music lovers, and all the best people in the world happen to be music lovers.
Yeah, no doubt.
That should be written on a tablet somewhere on a mountaintop. A guy with a beard coming down with lightning bolts up his ass.
Yeah, put it on a T-shirt or something on your tour here coming up. Hey,
or maybe wood burn it on someone's forehead.
That's right. All right, final thing here for you. So you're in the Amboy Dukes, and then of course you do your solo stuff, and then you join another band with Damn Yankees. That first record I love. I haven't dug into the second one as much, but the first one is fantastic.
It is, yeah.
What was it like to be Ted and now all of a sudden be Ted with other band members like this?
Well, that's a great question, because my answer will be even greater. I've always been a bandmate. I've always sponged the virtuosos around me. So even though it was just called Ted Nugent, it was really Cliff and Rob and Derek.
Mm.
It was really, when we got together, it was musicians creating a musical statement. And yet it said Ted Nugent instead of the Amboy Dukes now at that point, because I was a little bit more, shall I say, less than diplomatic. No, I want a song called Queen of the Forest. I know you don't think people are interested in nature and the outdoor lifestyle, but it's in my heart, and we're going to sing a song called Queen of the Forest. And I'm not looking for a vote. We're going to do it. and we're going to, and I know you all voted, the entire team voted against Stranglehold, but we're doing it anyway. Don't you love the middle finger, especially when it's tuned in to hit dead on at 100 yards, 30 caliber, doing 3,200 feet a second? My point is that when my life is driven by music. That's why we're blood brothers. We're Motor City blood brothers. There would be no life without music, especially the raw, dynamic music that we all love, and we're inspired by that passed the baton to the Stones and the Beatles and the Who and the Yardbirds and Grand Funk and Dick Wagner and the Frost and the MC5 and Bob Seger and the Rationals and Brownsville Station. I could go on, and I will go on. So when I get together with any musicians, I'm doing a bunch of Ted Nugent shit kicker speakeasies here in Texas and in Michigan this year, where it's as if it's like a teenage Ted Nugent with the bandmates in Detroit getting our first piece of ass. It's when I play with gung-ho musicians, which I've always been so privileged and humbled to have the opportunity to do to this very day, all these years later, that it's out of body. So I'd never pursued the name Ted Nugent instead of the Amboy Dukes. I want to be a star. I'm the star. No. It's my musical vision. I'm going to be selfish about it because I want to make these statements.
Mm-hmm.
But I surround myself with masters, Rob, Cliff, and Derek, and eventually John Souter and all these incredible musicians. So when the Damn Yankees idea came up, I'm still just a roustabout, adventurous music guy from Detroit. Tommy Shaw, Jack Blades, and Tommy's drummer, Michael Cardelloni. As soon as we got in the room, when John Colander said, you guys should get a band together, I think it'd be great to have Tommy Shaw, unbelievable, and Jack Blades, unbelievable, and Ted Nugent, and Tommy's drummer, he'll jam with you guys at the rehearsal room of Foreigner, Mick Brown, is it
Mick Jones?
Mick Jones. He said you could use his rehearsal room in New York. I said, yeah, I'd love to jam with Tommy. He's a monster. And Jack Blades is a monster. These guys are soulful monsters. And if this Michael Cardelloni guy is Tommy's drummer, then he obviously qualifies. Instantly, before we even set up guitars and amps, we had a couple of acoustic guitars. And Tommy started this movement that turned into Come Again.
Mm.
And I started doing these little trills, almost like what's his name? Motown White.
Jack
Robert
White.
Robert White.
Robert, yeah.
Robert White on a Gibson 400. I mean, I was inspired by all that stuff. It was part of my DNA. So when Tommy, who also comes from all soulful black influences, started playing that, and I started playing acoustic with him, we created Come Again now. Right now. We just got done shaking hands and sipping a bottle of water, and immediately Come Again happened. This is before Jack even was there. It was just me and Tommy. So that first album was as raw and primal and honest. And how do you get Ted Nugent's attention? Raw would help. Primal is a welcome mat, and genuine. And so it was like the first jam session when Horribek from Rare Earth wrote down the lyrics to Johnny Be Good at Tom Noel's house in 1962 with my band The Lords. What's Pete Horribek from Rare Earth. I'm way before your time, Meltdown. You follow me. This is a historical lesson.
A little bit, yeah.
Talking, I finished my Detroit newspaper route on Luella, and then I drove my stump jumper. It was a Huffy bicycle with snow tires, and my Detroit news paper bag and the high-rise handlebars, and I had my Fender Duosonic in the newspaper bag, and I drove to Tom Noel's house by hour drive, and they owned the Dexter Chevrolet, and they had a brand new Corvette there. And I could tell you I remember all the details. And Pete Horbeck from the Sunliners, who ended up being the drummer vocalist for Rare Earth, I wanted to play Johnny Be Good, and I was going to sing it. And John Brake was the singer, and Pete Horbeck, the drummer for Rare Earth and the Sunliners, he wrote down the lyrics to Johnny Be Good, and I played. So I could tell you. So I've always been a music maniac, whether it's the Royal Highboys in 1958, or the Lords in 1961, or the Amboy Dukes in 65, or the Ted Nugent Band starting in 75, or a chance to jam with Jack Blades and Tommy Shaw. Who's gonna stop me?
Right,
That would make a great police video. Somebody tried to stop me from jamming with musicians. So it was as pure as the driven snow, preferably before 1960, because the snow got dirty after that. Are you following me? Is this fun? Am I a fun interview? Is this an interview? I think it looks like a monologue. Anyhow.
I was going to say,
anyhow, but as a music guy, isn't this fascinating?
Yeah,
Don't you love this?
No, I love it.
So
yeah.
when I get a call from John Colonna, Ted, the Tommy Shaw's he's really underrated as a master guitar player, and he's really a musical genius. And I'd love to see you're a musical genius. You got this raw thing going, this Motown fire breathing, outrageous, like animal music that you make. What a great combination with Tommy Shaw, which got this angelic but soulful voice. And I said, okay, John, yeah, when and where? I just got back from a European tour, and I went to Manhattan. We got in the loft where the Foreigners' equipment was stored, and Tommy and I started playing. I went, yeah, this is awesome. I knew Tommy Shaw could do this. I knew it, especially with me in the room. It brings out a little bit more piss and vinegar. That's what Ted brings. Why would you bring Ted Nugent in? For the piss and the vinegar.
And the rawness and the honesty.
You want piss and vinegar. If you don't, you play country music. Anyhow,
that
was as raw.
That
was as raw and primal as any collaboration is possible. And hence your love of the soulfulness and the musicality and Tommy and Jack's unbelievable vocal delivery, so soulful. So what a great chapter that was, and it was. I don't have an ego. My enthusiasm destroyed my ego long time ago. I just want to make great music that's soulful, uppity, James Brownie, Motowny, and that describes Jack and Tommy. They're huge black men trapped in little white boys' bodies. And I brought a crowbar and let them escape.
Well, on that note, this thing is going to cut me off here in a second. But Ted, always great to talk with you. The Vault is coming out, or the Vault, I should say, is out right now. And we always appreciate you making time for us.
You bet. God bless you for being interested. But thank God for Jason Hartless, because I had these walls in a giant barn in Jackson Swamp of Michigan with all these tapes and recordings and jam sessions. Yep. And Jason started digging and going, "What is this?" And I go, "Wow, it looks like the Amboy Dukes' first rehearsal before Journey to Mine." So it really is historical, and it took a music genius, a music lover like Jason Hartless to crowbar it out of my barn. And he's doing amazing work with it, and people are going nuts, gushing, because you can see the origins of American fire-breathing, soulful, rhythm and blues inspired, high energy Detroit rock and roll. And that's it. That's your life. That's my life, and now he's documented. So thanks for discussing this with me. I appreciate it. And I'm sorry for being late, but I just got done with the Ted Nugent Spirit Campfire, and I get so wound up I had to go out with my dogs and kill something.